So here, I represent you a podcast with two professionals demons. So stay tuned, and with this podcast, and for better experience, use headphone and subscribe for my dedicated hard work. And now, onwards, we are streaming our podcast or videos on Spotify platform. Go there and listen. Link is in description.
Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today we have some really creepy listener-submitted source material, and let me tell you, it messed with my head a little bit.
Wow.
It's excerpts from the Creepypasta Bedtime.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to be talking all about what makes this story tick so effective. You know, what are the elements of storytelling that create those truly terrifying moments that stick with you?
Yeah, and what's really cool about this one is it doesn't resort to those kind of like over-the-top horror tropes, you know, like jump scares or gratuitous gore or anything like that.
Right.
It's much more subtle, and it really builds a sense of dread by tapping into these relatable fears and you know, and using suspense so effectively.
Yeah, and it all starts with such a familiar scenario, right? A young boy alone in his room at night. I mean, who hasn't been there?
Oh, totally.
Lying in bed as a kid,
Yeah.
convinced there's something hiding in the shadows.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so unsettling, right? It immediately taps into this universal childhood fear, you know? It's like an instant connection with the reader, because we've all been there.
And the story just pulls you in so quickly. You know, you feel that sense of unease almost immediately.
Yeah.
Like right from the beginning, there are these subtle hints that something isn't quite right. The way the light in the room is described as hesitant, the feeling of being watched while playing.
Oh, yeah. It's all so carefully crafted
Yeah.
to put you on edge right from the start.
I feel like the author really understands the power of suggestion here. You know, planting these little seeds of doubt and fear early on, and then they just let your imagination run wild.
Exactly. Fill in the blanks yourself.
And that brings me to what I think is one of the most brilliant things this author does. They never explicitly describe the creature.
Right?
It's like you get these glimpses, you know,
Yeah.
the fleeting moments of contact. But the full picture is left to the reader's imagination.
And I think that's one of the most effective techniques in horror, right? Because what you don't see
Right.
is often far more terrifying than what you do see.
Oh, for sure.
It allows you to project your own fears onto the unknown.
There's this one line that really sent chills down my spine.
Oh, yeah.
I did not see it, but as my hand moved the blanket, it brushed against something smooth and cold. I mean, just the thought of that unknown touch, it's enough to make your skin crawl.
You know, and it's so simple, too. It's not this elaborate description of a monster.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that feeling, that sensation of something cold and alien brushing against your hand in the dark. And that's enough to conjure up all sorts of terrifying possibilities.
It's like you can feel the narrator's fear in that moment.
Yeah,
And that just makes it that much more real for the reader.
exactly. You're experiencing it right alongside him.
And it's not just the lack of visual description that creates that sense of dread.
Right.
The author also uses sound incredibly effectively.
Oh, absolutely. Like all those little noises, the rustling sheets, the wheezing breath coming from the bottom bunk, the furniture scraping against the wall.
It's like a constant barrage of auditory cues designed to keep you on edge.
It's like the author's playing with your senses, you know, making you hyper aware of every little creak and groan.
It's no wonder the narrator becomes so paranoid.
Right. You start to question everything.
Yeah.
Like, is it real or is it just my imagination?
And that paranoia, it's such a key element of the story's effectiveness.
It really is.
Because as those sounds become more frequent and more menacing, you start to lose your grip on reality.
Yeah.
You're drawn into the narrator's spiral of fear.
Totally. And that's where the true horror takes hold.
You start to feel like you're right there in that suffocating room with him, listening for any sign of the creature's return. And
Waiting for the other shoe to drop,
yeah,
so to speak.
it's just so well done. And
Yeah. Whatever you can say.
I was just gonna say, I think we should probably take a break here,
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
and we'll come back and talk about how that fear really escalates throughout the rest of the story.
Sounds good. You know what really gets me about this story is that it goes beyond just the physical attacks.
Right.
It's the psychological impact you see.
Yeah.
Like how these encounters slowly unravel the narrator.
Oh, totally. You see him becoming more and more isolated, like trying to cope with this terrifying experience.
Yeah.
But Owen believes him.
Exactly. And that just makes it all the more horrifying. It's like a nightmare within a nightmare.
Right.
To go through something so terrifying and have everyone around you dismiss it as if it's nothing.
Yeah. It's like the creature isn't just preying on him physically, but also emotionally.
Totally. It's feeding off that isolation.
Right.
That fear.
And it just gets worse over time. Like there's this detail that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
The narrator mentions that his parents only lasted 10 days in that room.
Oh, wow.
Before they had to move.
That's pretty telling, right?
Yeah.
About the power this creature has. Like, it's not just confined to the boy.
It's like the fear itself becomes this entity that permeates their lives.
Exactly. And you know what else is interesting?
What's that?
The way the story plays with our fascination with the unknown.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we all have that primal fear of the dark.
Right.
Of what might be lurking just beyond our sight.
It's like the author knows exactly how to tap into those deep-seated anxieties.
Yeah. And they do it so well by leaving so much to our imagination.
Right. We never really get a clear picture of what the creature is or why it's tormenting the narrator.
And that uncertainty is incredibly effective.
It makes you question everything.
It really does. Like, is this real? Is it all in his head? We don't know for sure.
And the way the story uses those scientific mantras, like, science does not owe its debts to imagination.
Right.
It's like the narrator is desperately clinging to rationality as a way to cope with the unexplainable.
It highlights that tension between our desire for a rational world and the possibility that there are things out there that defy all logic and explanation.
I mean, it's a scary thought
Oh, absolutely.
that even in this age of science and technology, there might still be mysteries that we just can't comprehend.
Mysteries that could be lurking right under our noses.
You know, we talked about how the horror escalates throughout the story, but it's not just the creature's attacks that intensify.
Right.
It's like the story itself expands beyond that childhood bedroom.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like that feeling follows him even into adulthood.
Exactly. It's like whatever he encountered wasn't tied to that specific location.
Yeah.
It latched onto him somehow and just never let go.
That's a really chilling thought.
It is. It makes you realize that no matter where you go or how much time passes, you can never truly escape.
The past.
The past and the things that haunt you. The way it affects his relationships.
Yeah.
His girlfriend thinks he's crazy. His family's worried about him. He's totally isolated.
Alone with his terror.
It's heartbreaking and terrifying at the same time.
You know, it makes me think about the lasting power of trauma.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like how it can shape our lives even years after the actual event.
And in this case, it's like the creature itself represents that trauma in a way.
Even when it's not physically present, its influence lingers. It casts this shadow over everything the narrator experiences.
And then there's that incredible climax where he finally decides to fight back.
He's done running.
Yeah, he's ready to confront his fears head on.
It's a turning point in the story.
It is. It's a desperate battle against something he doesn't fully understand.
Right.
Something that seems to exist outside the rules of the natural world.
And the ending.
The ending leaves you with more questions than answers.
Doesn't it? It's like the author wants us to keep thinking about it.
Exactly. Like, what is the true nature of fear? And what are the things that might be lurking just beyond our perception? And are we truly safe?
Or is it all just a matter of time before the darkness catches up to us?
Yeah. It's a chilling thought. You know, one thing that I found really interesting is how this story kind of plays with our expectations of a traditional ghost story.
Oh, yeah.
Like you have those elements of hauntings and the supernatural, but there's also this really primal, almost monstrous quality to the creature.
It's true. It's like a blend of those classic ghost story tropes.
Right.
With something much more visceral and disturbing.
And it's the way it interacts with the narrator, those physical violations.
Yeah, it's not just a specter or a spirit floating around.
Right.
It feels more tangible, more predatory.
Yeah. Like almost animalistic.
Exactly.
It made me think of those nature documentaries where you see a predator stalking its prey.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see what you mean.
That same sense of inevitability of being hunted.
It's like you're just waiting for the attack.
And it brings up this question that I don't think the story ever really answers.
What's that?
What does the creature want? Why is it fixated on this boy?
Yeah, that's a good question. We get hints, but ultimately its motives are never fully revealed.
And I kind of like that.
Me too.
It adds to the mystery and forces you to come up with your own interpretations.
It definitely keeps you thinking about it long after you've finished reading.
So we've talked a lot about the creature, the suspense, the psychological impact, but we haven't really touched on the ending.
Right.
Without giving too much away,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on how the story concludes?
Well, I think the ending is brilliant in its ambiguity. It doesn't tie everything up in a neat little bow.
Right.
It leaves you wondering if the creature is truly defeated or if it's still out there somewhere, waiting to resurface.
It's like that classic horror movie trope.
Yeah, where you think the monster's dead, but then it pops up again in the final scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that uncertainty is what makes the ending so effective.
Definitely. It plays on those primal fears. The fear of the unknown, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear that no matter what you do,
Right.
the darkness might still find you.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We've
explored the themes of fear, isolation, and the unknown. We've dissected the author's masterful use of suspense, sensory details, and psychological horror.
Yeah, and we've talked about the story's ability to stay with you long after you finished reading it.
So for anyone listening who hasn't experienced bedtime, I highly recommend giving it a read. But
Be warned.
yeah, be warned. It's not for the faint of heart.
Nope.
And for those who've already braved the story, I hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for its craft and complexity.
And maybe even a few more chills.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating exploration of the stories that shape our world. Until then, sleep tight.
And don't let the bed bugs bite.
Hey everyone, ready for something a little spooky?
Oh, I know I am. Always up for a good scare.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into the power of storytelling. Specifically those stories that just get under your skin.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
We found this YouTube video called 3 Scary True Weekend Getaway Horror Stories.
Okay.
And let me tell you, these aren't your typical ghost stories. These are real people telling their own real-life horror stories.
I think what's so fascinating about stories like these is that they just get to you on a different level.
Right.
It's not just like jump scares or anything like that.
Exactly.
It's the way they build the tension, the feeling that something is just off.
Yes, it's like they invite you right into their nightmare.
I love that.
So the first story is called The Stolen Pen and Disturbing Notebook.
Okay.
And it starts with a group of middle schoolers on a trip to this island in Maine.
Sounds kind of idyllic, right?
You'd think so, but right away you get this feeling of isolation.
Oh yeah, classic horror movie setup.
Totally. They're away from home in this unfamiliar place, and it's like they're just totally vulnerable.
It's that vulnerability that really sets the stage for the fear to take hold.
Right, and it all starts with these little unsettling details.
Like what?
Like a missing baseball cap, a stolen pen,
Okay.
and then late at night, they hear these whispers. And someone sees one of their friends in a place they couldn't possibly be.
Ooh, spooky.
And the storyteller, they're really using these details to foreshadow something truly terrifying is coming.
Foreshadowing is such a powerful tool in horror, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It keeps you on the edge of your seat, anticipating what's going to happen next.
And then there's the notebook.
Oh, tell me about this notebook.
Okay, so it's full of these disturbing drawings.
Oh, no.
And there's even a drawing of the narrator, like on a cross.
What?
Yeah, with their legs missing and a caption that says, "I'll do it tomorrow."
Oh, that's creepy.
It's seriously creepy. It's
Yeah.
like, who's drawing these things?
Yeah.
And what do they mean?
It's the specificity of those details that makes it so unsettling. You know, it's not just some vague threat.
Yeah.
It's this tangible representation of the danger they're in.
Absolutely.
And the fact that they don't know what it all means just adds to the fear.
Okay, and then it gets even weirder.
It does.
So they all freak out and leave the island. Years later, the narrator gets a letter,
A letter.
and inside is the pen that was stolen.
No way.
No explanation, no apology, just the pen.
That's chilling.
Seriously, what does it even mean?
That open ending, that's what makes it so brilliant.
Really?
It denies you closure. It leaves you with all these unanswered questions,
Yeah.
which honestly can be scarier than any monster.
Oh, absolutely. Like the story is still playing out in your head even after it's over.
Exactly. It sticks with you.
So these unsettling open endings, it's intentional.
Absolutely. It's a deliberate choice to make the story linger in your mind.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about scaring us. It's about making us think, too.
Exactly. And that's what good horror does. It stays with you, makes you question things.
I love that. Okay, well, this next story is called The Family Laser Tag Nightmare. And it takes a different approach, but it's still full of suspense.
Okay, tell me more.
So picture this. A family has this tradition of playing laser tag in the woods at night in Vermont.
Ooh, I see where this is going.
Right. So it starts off kind of fun, like a friendly competition.
Yeah.
But the way the storyteller describes it, you could hear the snow crunching under their feet and like their heart beating.
Oh, wow. It pulls you right in.
Right. You can feel the cold, the darkness closing in. And then the narrator starts noticing these weird things.
Like what?
Strange footprints in the snow.
Yeah.
Like the feeling that someone's watching them.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Suddenly it's not a game anymore. Something feels wrong.
It's taking something familiar, something safe,
Yeah.
and twisting it into something threatening. Like the woods should be peaceful, but now it's a hunting ground.
Exactly. And then these strangers appear. And they have laser guns too.
Yeah.
And the chase is on.
Oh, wow. That's terrifying.
Can you imagine being hunted through the woods in the dark by people you don't even know?
Oh, that's playing on our deepest fears.
Right.
The fear of the unknown, of being vulnerable in a place you should feel safe.
Totally. And even when they make it back to their cabin, that feeling of dread,
Yeah.
it doesn't go away.
Oh, I bet.
They know something's not right.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear what happens next.
I know, right? It's a total cliffhanger.
So what happens next? What's in the cabin?
Well, they wake up, and right outside the cabin, there's a snowman,
A snowman.
and it's holding one of their laser guns.
No way.
Yeah, it's like a calling card or something.
That's so creepy. It's like those strangers are letting them know they're still out there watching.
Think about it. It's a snowman, right? It should be innocent,
Yeah.
but it's not. It's holding this weapon.
It's like almost a threat.
Totally. And the way the uncle reacts, it's like he just loses it.
Oh, really?
Starts shooting at the snowman, yelling into the woods.
Oh, wow. It's like he's trying to take back some control
Right.
when he feels so helpless.
It's a powerful image, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know what to do in that situation.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
And of course, just like the first story, we're left with all these questions.
The mystery continues.
Like, who were those people in the woods? What did they want?
I guess we'll never know.
It's that lack of resolution. It really keeps you thinking about it.
That's the thing about ambiguity, right?
Yeah.
It just lets your imagination run wild.
So it's almost like the storyteller gives you the outline and you fill in the blanks with your own fears.
Exactly. That's what makes it so effective. You're creating the terror yourself in a way.
It makes you a part of the story. Okay, well, our last story today is called The Menacing Airbnb Getaway.
Ooh, Airbnb. I love a good Airbnb story.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But this one, it's like a nightmare scenario. So imagine you're with your friends. You rent this amazing house for spring break.
This is fun.
Right. It's in California. Everything seems perfect.
Okay.
But then things start getting weird.
Oh, how so?
At first, it's just little things. Like strange lights outside at night. Weird noises.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough to make you uneasy, but not enough to, like, call the police.
Yeah, you're like, am I just imagining things?
Right, exactly. But then someone throws a rock through the window,
What?
and it has a note attached to it that says, "Go away, you shouldn't be here."
That's terrifying. Talk about a violation.
Right. And suddenly it's real. It's not in their heads anymore.
Oh, for sure. It just shatters that sense of security you're supposed to have,
They're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
No one knows they're there, and someone is clearly messing with them.
That's scary stuff.
And again, so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, the worst.
Was it the Airbnb host? Was it someone who lived nearby? Like, what was going on? It really plays into those anxieties we all have about trust,
Right.
Especially when it comes to, like, the sharing economy.
Yeah, you're putting a lot of faith in strangers.
It really makes you think twice about where you're staying.
Okay, so we've got these three very different stories, but there are some interesting connections between them, right?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you see?
Well, first of all, there's that theme of isolation. Like, in every story, the characters are kind of cut off from their normal support systems.
Right, they're vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the power of the unknown.
Like, we never really find out who the bad guys are or what they want.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so scary.
Totally. It's our own imagination filling in the blanks.
And that can be way more terrifying than anything a storyteller could dream up.
So basically, these stories are like giving us just enough to scare us, and then letting our minds do the rest.
And then there's that lingering unease, right?
Yeah.
None of these stories have a real resolution. We're left wondering what happened next.
Yeah. Did they ever figure out who was terrorizing them in the Airbnb? Does that family ever see those laser tag guys again?
Exactly. We just don't know.
And I think that's what makes these stories stick with you.
It's like the storytellers inviting us to keep the story going in our own heads.
So it's not just about passive listening.
Right.
You're actively participating in creating the fear.
Exactly. That's what makes it so effective.
So these stories, it's not all just for fun, right? Like, what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from these creepy experiences?
Well, I think one thing these stories show us is just how powerful storytelling can be.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to tapping into our fears.
Right.
You know, real horror isn't just about gore and jump scares. It's about those primal anxieties we all have, the things that keep us up at night.
And it's not easy to do, right?
No, absolutely not. There's a real art to it.
Like, these storytellers, they're not just making things up.
No.
They're crafting these experiences.
Exactly. They use foreshadowing, pacing, those vivid details.
It's like they know exactly how to get under our skin.
And then leaving things open-ended. Genius.
Yeah.
It makes you a part of the story.
It's like they're saying, here's a little piece of the nightmare, now you finish it.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so effective. It's not just entertainment.
It's an experience.
It gets under your skin, stays with you.
Okay, well, I'm officially creeped out. All the little noises in my apartment are suddenly freaking me out.
See? That's the power of a good story, right?
Yeah.
It can change how we see the world, even if just for a bit.
But maybe that's a good thing, right? Like maybe it makes us more aware.
You know, it's funny you say that because it's kind of like our ancestors telling stories around the campfire.
About all the dangers out there.
Exactly. Those stories served a purpose, you know? They warned people about real threats, helped them stay safe.
So maybe we're still doing that.
Maybe. Even in our comfy modern world, we still need those reminders that there are things out there that go bump in the night.
Okay, well, before we go, is there anything else, like something we didn't touch on that you want our listeners to think about?
Well, I'd say think about the stories you tell yourselves.
The stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah, the narratives that shape your life.
Oh, interesting.
What are the fears and anxieties that drive those stories? And how can you use them to understand yourself better, maybe even confront those fears head on?
Wow, that's deep. It's like these horror stories, they're kind of a mirror,
I like that.
reflecting back our own fears.
Exactly. And maybe by looking into that mirror, we can find a way to overcome them.
That is awesome. A huge thank you to our expert for this amazing deep dive into storytelling and fear. And all of you listening, thank you. We want to hear from you. What are some of the stories that have really stuck with you? And what are the fears that shape your own personal narratives? Share your thoughts in the comments. And until next time, happy listening and sleep tight.